Today's episode of the Bill Simmons podcast on the Ringer Podcast Network, brought to you by ZipRecruiter. We did not use ZipRecruiter to hire Kevin Clark.
You just emailed me.
I'll tell you this, though. If we had gone through ZipRecruiter, they would have found you. You know why I know that? Because their technology and tools make hiring more efficient and effective. It's the smartest way to hire. 80% of employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate through the site in just one day. My listeners can try it for free. Just go to ZipRecruiter.com/BS. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. We're also brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. Everyone knows about the risks of driving drunk. People could get hurt or killed. You could get arrested, incur huge legal expenses, or even lose your job. If you think drunk driving is no big deal, you couldn't be more wrong, especially Labor Day is coming up. Be careful. We have ride sharing now. Don't get behind the wheel. Drive sober or get pulled over. Those are your two options. Learn more at nhtsa.gov. Let's talk about theringer.com. We had running back day. Is today Sam Darnold day?
It's Sam Darnold day.
God, I just really lost control of the website this week. We had a Fly Eagles Fly Day and a Sam Arnold
This is a
day.
Sean Fennessey flex. There's a couple Jets fans over there, and they're having a great time this week.
Well, he's going to be flexing 20 interceptions and 7 TDs. We're going to talk to him later, actually. We have that. We have the latest batch of Are We Sure NBA, this little gimmick we're doing in August because there's nothing to write about in August. Are we sure DeMarcus Cousins isn't going to ruin the Warriors? I'm not sure, actually. Who knows? They had such good chemistry last year. You just never know. Speaking of the Warriors, my Steph Curry podcast, it dropped late Wednesday night. It was a good one. Really fun to finally have him on. We went to Oakland to talk to him. Whole bunch of other stuff on theringer.com. Check it out. Whole bunch of great podcasts. Check those out. Check out the Ringer NFL show hosted by one of the hosts is Kevin Clark. And we launched Dynasty Football a couple weeks ago, which is like shockingly good. Danny Heifetz is I think he's like 18 years old. He might be the youngest podcast host.
I wouldn't doubt it. No.
Have they invited you on?
Maze nor I are good at fantasy football. We're not going to be invited onto that show.
They're just dropping. They have this lingo already. They're like, well, he's a QB8 right now, but he could get to QB5. I'm like, what are you guys talking about?
They developed instant chemistry.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Check that out. It's running on Wednesdays, and they have a lot of good tips already. I've learned a lot. Dynasty Football on the Ringer NFL show. Clark and Mays are on there twice a week. Yep. GM Street. It is packed. We're heading toward the season. We're going to talk about the season with Kevin Clark back from his big training camp trip, along with Sean Fennessey, who's going to talk about the history of the Jets QBs. But first, our friends from Pearl Jam. All right, so I'm driving to work and the Pats lost yet another first-round pick.
Between injuries and NFL investigations
and trading down,
not a lot of production from first-round picks.
This one was just a bad luck thing because Isaiah Wynn, offensive lineman they drafted, just busts his Achilles in the second preseason game. They lost a first-round pick with Deflategate, which was the biggest F job of this decade with football. I still can't believe it. The Steelers just had a deflating football thing at exhibition. Nobody cares.
It was swept under the rug within 8 hours.
Nobody cares.
10
Nobody
hours?
ever cares about footballs except
by the
when
time
Tom
I
Brady's
woke
involved.
up from that story, it had been resolved by the league.
Right.
No big deal.
Lost 2008, lost a first round pick because of Spygate. And the Pats have traded down a bunch of times. My math is a little bit off, just because I'm doing this off the top of my head, but I would say over the last 11 years, I'm going to throw in Lawrence Maroney too, because he sucked.
Okay.
Just the Pats getting anything out of a first round pick is a borderline miracle. And yet they're minus 600 to win the AFC East yet. I keep looking at this Pats season. Let's just start with them, not because I'm a Boston sports fan, because I think it's a really interesting question. We just pencil in the Pats every year for the AFC East, and for years and years, it's been the best bet. You went to their training camp?
No, I went to I went to the Bills.
You went to the Bills training camp?
I went to the Bills training camp, and I'm happy to report for you,
yeah,
the Patriots are still going to win the AFC East.
Okay, good. Because I look at this and I go, one of these years, They're going to go 6-10. It's going to happen. This is the rule of the NFL.
But look at the other AFC East team. I mean, I don't think you can tell the story of the Patriots dynasty without telling the rest of the AFC East story.
It's a hand-in-hand thing.
That is, the Bills have just been, in general, completely irrelevant. The Dolphins have had little specks of relevance, but nothing really sustainable. I mean, again, if they had gotten Drew Brees and Nick Saban and those two team up, it's a completely different story over the past decade.
It's the biggest what if for the last 12 years.
I mean, we hear this. There are people around the league all the time who say the number one thing with the Patriots dynasty is Belichick. Number 2 or 1B, whatever you want to do, is Brady. Number 3 is Chan Gailey and Buddy Nix and Todd Bowles and all of the people around who have conspired to not. It's like the Atlanta Braves in the NL East, right? In the NL East, the Braves, they were helped along in that division streak by the fact that just the Phillies and the Marlins and all those teams never put together a sustainable run.
I'm conceding all of this. By the way, just before I keep going on this, the Jets fans, they like to play the woes us card. They've had a couple nice runs in there. The Parcells one was really nice.
And 2 straight
the Rex
AFC
Ryan run was really nice.
Yeah.
It's not like, to me, comparing them to the Bills, it's no contest. The Bills have never had any nice runs. The Bills, the highlight of their entire 21st century was winning that Week 17 game that got them into the playoffs, and then they summarily lost and scored 3 points.
Yeah.
The Jets have actually they've beaten New England in Foxborough in a playoff game.
Yeah.
Like, they've made AFC championship games. Like, it's not a catastrophe if you're a Jets fan. So settle down, Jets fans.
Yeah, I know. I agree with that. I mean, the Bills are definitely the lowest rung of the AFC. And
the Bills are the Bills lost 4 straight Super Bowls. They lost 4 straight Super Bowls. They lost the Music City Miracle, and nothing good has happened for them this entire century.
And Jalen Ramsey started his quarterback rant on Josh Allen.
He was his first choice. He's like, I'll have a little cup of Josh Allen. But with all of this said, every year we see two teams that everybody pencils in. So here, who are your 12 playoff teams? I have these guys. And then something happens. And this was my entire case to go against the Raiders last year. I was like, why are we putting the Raiders in the AFC West? Like, are we sure? And my fear with the Pats, Brady's 41. There's no backup QB. Haven't loved their drafts the last couple of years. Their defense looked abysmal last year. I know it's a little better this year, but like the middle linebacker is a fifth round pick right now that they're all excited about, but we have no idea what he's gonna be like in pass coverage. One of these years they're gonna suck. So why can't it be this year?
It can be this year. I mean, it's exactly what you said. I'm looking at the first round picks here. The last really relevant, depending on how you view maybe Malcolm Brown, I don't know. Donta Hightower and Chandler Jones are 2012. They shipped Chandler Jones out.
It was great. They traded up for Chandler Jones.
Yeah, and it was a good pick.
Yeah.
Solder's gone. Devin McCourty was 2010. And then before that, all those guys are mostly gone.
But those are 4 good players. So they got 4 good starters.
Yeah, they did.
I mean, the law of the NFL is every year with your first round pick, you're getting a guaranteed starter. And the Pats are somehow batting probably 40% for the last 12 years, and it hasn't mattered at all. They've always been able to sneak around. And
isn't the little theory about Belichick in the draft that he listens too much to these college coaches who just sort of give him like the Urban Meyers and the Nick Sabans?
Yeah, might be.
And this, I always heard this, and I don't know how. Obviously, there's more weird rumors that come out of New England than any other team.
Yeah.
The theory I always heard is like the scouts say, "Hey, I like this guy, and then kind of late in the draft process, Belichick says, "Oh well, I just talked to this coach, and he says this guy's good." And the scouts
Nick
are
Saban
like,
really likes this running back. Yeah, I think that's probably true. So if you had to pick, let's play this out.
Okay.
Brady, knock on wood, please pray God this doesn't happen. Brady gets hurt. Just a season from hell for the Pats. They go 7-9 or 8-8.
Okay.
Who, if you had to bet on one of the other 3 teams to sneak out a 9-7, 10-6, and steal the AFC East, who would you pick?
All right, it would be the Miami Dolphins. Only because, first of all, they made the playoffs 2 years ago. Ryan Tannehill's healthy again. They have a backup quarterback competition right now. Are you familiar with the backup quarterback competition, Miami?
It's incredible.
Brock Osweiler and Bryce Petty are currently on the depth chart in Miami, and it's amazing. The Dolphins cut their best player for almost no reason in Ndamukong Suh. I got some tweets the other day.
There's some chemistry stuff with him, though.
Of course, yeah. But I mean, I think the Rams feel like it can work. Drake, their running back, is maybe their best player. I don't know. I mean, we
had
played
him
this
on
game
fantasy
the other day.
last 6-7 weeks. He's good.
We played this game the other day with Danny Kelly and Rhino Hamlin. I think that Danny was throwing out maybe Cameron Wake as their most talented player, which is not true. But the fact that we're throwing that out is kind of weird. I mean, I just think that they have a couple of guys who, if they hit, that can be a 9-10 win team. And in a very weak, if it was a weak AFC East without a good Patriots team, that's the type of team that can sneak in. The Bills, they're just sort of in stage 1 or 2 of a weird retooling. I think they might go with Josh Allen sooner rather than later. And then the Jets, I mean, who the hell knows? I don't think their offensive line is good enough.
We see this every year, and every year it is an easy schedule. It's a couple sneaky wins early and some momentum. And all of a sudden, we're looking around going, whoa, how'd this happen? And it's going to happen to the Pats. I don't think it'll be this year, but like Tom Brady's 41. Like,
the
who the hell
only
knows?
team that has won the AFC East side from the Patriots since 2002 is the team that put their running back at quarterback for like half the season. So just think about it that way, Bill. And that's not going to happen again.
So the Pats are still 6-1, Dolphins 9-1, Jets 11-1, Bills 12-1.
I like Adam Gase more than the rest of those guys.
So that's part of the case with the Dolphins, right? They made the playoffs 2 years ago. Adam Gase is a good coach. They clearly had chemistry issues and got rid of some guys. Although watching the Browns Hard Knocks,
Travis Landry,
just him blessing everybody, I can understand why they had to trade him finally. It's like, this guy's a lunatic.
I wrote a profile of Travis Landry.
Bless him.
2 years ago, I wrote a profile of Travis Landry, which he told me he wears a headband because he envisions himself on the field as Rambo, as John Rambo.
I remember that.
And I either that's a massive red flag or somebody you want on your team. There's no in between on that one.
It is one of those things like you could see when they're watching whatever the first like inter squad scrimmage, and he's just getting open and catching everything, and all the guys are just turning around at each other, go, "Oh my God, oh my Jesus!"
No, they were turning around.
They have a lot of those.
They were
guys.
turning around to see Greg Williams and Todd Haley literally punching each other in the face the entire practice. That's what they were looking at.
Who's the biggest loser of Hard Knocks right now? Greg Williams, Todd Haley, or Hugh Jackson? If you had to power rank through 2 episodes,
it's probably Hugh. I think Todd Haley's kind of winning. I kind of like Todd Haley. Let's be clear. All 3 of those guys are now completely unemployable.
It's Greg Williams certainly is. Greg Williams seems like a Roadhouse villain or something.
I like Todd Haley. I think he's a good offensive coordinator, and I think he's a good Hard Knocks presence.
Hugh Jackson, it was sad. His mom died in the first episode,
Yeah.
and it kind of obscured a couple of the worst moments I've ever seen from a coach on that show. Like when he did that whole "this is my show," when you guys have your own team, you can make the calls, but right now this is my team. When you're in this seat, you'll understand. Like he's basically flexing with the people that he's relying on to succeed day in and day out.
There's no way immediately after that meeting they didn't start to stage a coup.
They
were just immediately just starting to undermine him as soon as the meeting was over.
I mean, obviously I'm running a company right now that has 95 people, and you have an inner circle. You want that inner circle to like you and feel somewhat empowered. You can't have a meeting with them and go, "Listen, I hear what you're saying, but I don't care. When you're in this seat, you'll understand. This is my show." It's like, what is happening? He had some of the worst. He just seems like a buffoon, and he wasn't great in episode 2 either. He just kind of wanders around and seems crazy. You put it this way. He went 1-31 in 2 years,
yeah,
and it made sense after the first 2 Hard Knocks episodes.
So I think the second part of that is he went 1-31 in 2 years, and he somehow looks worse now.
Yeah,
like it was just you combine the 1-31 with that, and it's like, oh, okay.
I could see how he's a good QB coach. Like he was clearly he's connecting with Tyrod and Baker. I like, but I know this happens every year with Hard Knocks. But watching both of those guys, I was like, oh, the Browns.
Yep.
Maybe at some point. So their odds. AFC North, they're 10-1, which has to be the lowest the Browns have been in some time.
It's just a weird division.
AFC North. Steelers -275, Ravens +450, Bengals 10-1, Browns 10-1. Not a fan of that division.
The Steelers are weird. I mean, I feel like at some point it becomes a big deal that Le'Veon Bell just doesn't do training camp anymore. I understand he's trying to save his body and all that, but if he really does show up on September 1st, How is that not a big deal?
Well, what about the fact that they know he's not going to be on the team next year?
And they can just run him into the ground.
And he's conscious of that.
Right.
And probably has people in his life like, hey, man, you had 38 carries in a week 5 blowout.
The all-time example of that is DeMarco Murray, who, by the way, just retired over the season.
At age 28.
At age 28. And the Cowboys in 2014 were like, we're not going to bring DeMarco Murray back. And they ran him. He's the last. You're familiar with the rule of 370. Which basically, if you run the ball 370 times,
it's one of the dumbest, most arbitrary, but incredibly awesome rules. It actually is really effective.
He's the only guy in the last decade who surpasses the rule of 370. And,
is that true?
Yeah, and it doesn't happen anymore. It does not happen anymore.
Yeah.
Todd Gurley's never run the ball 300 times in a season, and probably never will.
There's no reason to.
But the Dallas Cowboys looked at it and said, "This is for us. It's better to just tank DeMarco Murray's career." They made the playoffs that year. That was the Dez Bryant goes into Green Bay and almost wins the playoff game for them, but we get the catch rule there. And they literally rode him to that. Okay. Murray. So the Steelers might be thinking the same thing. I think that's the most interesting thing. And so is there internal friction in week 8 if he's touching the ball 35 times every week? I don't know.
You went to Steelers, right?
I did.
Roethlisberger is another one who we have all these quarterbacks and all of a sudden it's going to be over. It's like with the Peyton Manning thing a few years ago when he had the resurgence in Denver. And you just keep, Denver's going to be good again. And then one year, Peyton Manning couldn't throw the football anymore.
He had
and
4
couldn't
neck
move.
surgeries.
And he had 4 neck surgeries, and they were cracking down on his wife's shipments, and that was it. But these guys, once you get past 35, you just don't know. Roethlisberger, I think you feel this way too.
He'll be the first to go.
It just doesn't.
I don't know when that is.
Doesn't seem like he's going to age into his 40s. He took a lot of hits, man.
And the way he plays, it just doesn't age well. It just doesn't age well. And so I think the one thing to be said for that generation of quarterbacks, obviously they're aging out of relevance, and at some point they'll all fall off a cliff. And I'm really intrigued to see how that goes. I think the new rules this year, the middle of the field is going to be so wide open because of the helmet rule and all that stuff, that there's going to be an offensive explosion. It might actually tack on a year or two to those guys' relevance, because I think it'll help a lot of the crappy quarterbacks, but it'll really help an accurate thrower over the middle of the field. The number one thing I heard in my training camp tour is that no one understands this new helmet rule. And so one of the things that every safety in the league or every linebacker in the league is going to be half a step slow over the middle. And so you can just hit those crossing routes over and over again. We're going to see an offensive explosion like I don't think many people see coming.
That was why I wanted the Pats to trade for Jarvis Landry. He's just sitting there.
Yeah. Well, they had to sign a huge extension, the Browns.
Well, Belichick found out he wasn't white and he didn't want him. So he doesn't fit in our plan this year. seven white receivers. I kid Bill Belichick.
Did you see Steven Gostkowski catch up the pass on the sideline last night?
No, he's our second best receiver.
Yeah, no. I was just... Belichick sees a white guy catch a pass, all of a sudden
he's like, what? Can we run some plays with him? I texted my buddy Hench yesterday, who's already freaking out about the Pats season. I was like, 3rd and 9, week 1.
Yeah.
Give me 2 receivers you trust. He's like, Chris Hogan and no one.
I think Hogan's going to have a big year.
Chris Hogan's going to have a huge year. Fantasy Football last week, my new favorite podcast. They were talking, Chris Hogan was wide receiver 28. Heading into the season, they were like, he's definitely wide receiver 9. But yeah, he actually was having an awesome season last year before he got hurt.
You have to remember, Brady essentially invented, along with Manning, the craft of throwing over the middle of the field.
I thought you were going to say invented Chris Hogan.
He sort of did.
He might have also invented Chris Hogan.
He sort of did. But he invented throwing over the middle of the field. That's the cheat code of modern NFL play.
Yeah.
And he's going to understand. Every single trend that has happened over the past 10 years offensively, Brady's been half a season ahead on.
I was also going to say also favorable to Tom Brady. Because the biggest thing that happened in the last 12 years was basically turning into touch football for QBs. And then nobody at their legs anymore and any of that stuff. And that's why they're able to play their 40. I don't think Ben Roethlisberger is going to be able to play till he's 40.
How do you view Rodgers?
I think Breeze could. I think Rodgers, however long he wants. I just see him getting bored. I could see him one summer just being like, I want to join the PGA Tour. I've decided to retire.
Like when Phil Mickelson tried to make the Detroit Tigers.
Did that happen?
Yeah. It's a lost as
a
chapter.
Fat long reliever.
He topped out at like 80 miles per hour and they said no.
80 miles an hour?
Something
That's
like
still
that.
pretty impressive.
High 70s.
Hey, let's talk about Starbucks Double Shot. Start with a bold Starbucks coffee. It's blended with milk for a smooth, creamy, delicious flavor. It's enhanced with ginseng, guarana, and B vitamins. Double Shot available in 6 delicious flavors: mocha, vanilla, hazelnut, white chocolate, coffee, Mexican mocha. An energy coffee drink. Not only tastes great, gives you the energy to go from point A to point done. Always fun to open the fridge around 5:30. About 7 Starbucks Double Shots there. All right. Better than going to the actual Starbucks. I don't have to leave my house. Starbucks Double Shot. Energy to do the things you actually do. Find it in your local convenience store. Do you need a couple of Starbucks Double Shots on the training camp tour?
A lot of Starbucks.
Yeah.
It was 80% Starbucks, 20% Panera, 5% gas station. Grab and go.
What was the highlight? Give me your 3 highlights from the tour.
Oh, geez. Sitting down with Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
And getting his opinion on the state of football because, and I would say the same for Josh Norman as well, which posted this week. No one asks the players what they think. Ever.
Yeah.
That's the state of the league right now. Like, they don't care. They meet with their competition committee, and that's the conduit to the players. And they don't ask the NFLPA anything. So they're passing kickoff rules, they're passing helmet rules, all this stuff, and nobody asks even the superstar players, hey, what's this going to do to the game? And that's why we're going to find ourselves, along with the fact that they, as soon as they passed the biggest rule change in the last 10 years, they decided to switch over a bunch of new referees. So we're going to have referees who don't know what they're doing with incredible rule changes. So it'll be a complete disaster for the first 2 months of the season. That's separate. Now, Aaron Rodgers, sitting down with him was absolutely awesome. The number, if that's number one, I would say I had a good experience. I reported a story about how everything happens in the first 2 seconds of a play now. And I asked Brandon Graham about it. You're not going to want to hear this, so you can just close your ears. I asked him what he did to get to Tom Brady for the strip sack. And he stood me up and he gave me the move that he put on Shaq Mason.
I don't want to read that.
Yeah, well, that's why I told you not to listen.
Yeah, not sure I want to hear it, but keep going.
No,
Maybe
and so he just literally, he talked about how the Patriots had tells on the offensive line, and he couldn't tell me what they were, but he said they had massive tells on the offensive line. And
being poor at blocking, was that a tell?
We knew for a fact they were going to be bad after the snap. We knew that. No, and so he just he literally made me be Shaq, and he was Brandon Graham, obviously, and he put the move on me. That was fantastic. And then I would say, I think just generally, there's the rookie quarterbacks are bringing so much excitement to this league. I think that one of the things that I keep harping on and I keep hearing, it's easier than ever to play quarterback. Easier than ever in the history of football to play quarterback. RPOs, it's like a 68% completion percentage. If you can't complete a pass now, you are so beyond bad that it's unbelievable, okay? And so all of these guys who are coming in now are going to play really well kind of in their rookie year in a way that people aren't expecting. And so I think I'm excited about that because 4 or 5 years ago, it was just too hard to play quarterback. It was just too hard.
Well, I think they also went to teams and fan bases that really desperately wanted a quarterback.
Exactly.
So you have Buffalo, Cleveland, and the Jets. Just start with those 3. All of those fan bases have been dying, would have sacrificed small children to have a good quarterback in their lives for 10 years.
Baker is the exact right quarterback for Cleveland. He wants to talk shit. He wants to put Cleveland on his back. There's a couple of guys, Myles Garrett as well, who's the defense, who's just the
very sensitive Myles Garrett. Didn't realize he was a poetry writer.
Oh, yeah. I'm writing a profile of him.
The poet, Myles Garrett.
I'm writing a profile of him that'll run on theringer.com. But
not since Reed Rothschild have I been so impressed by poetry on my TV.
Poet warrior. Yeah. But one of the things that he said is, and I really do believe this, is that this Browns team takes pride in being carrying the torch LeBron left. Okay, I'm not saying they're going to make the Super Bowl.
That's absurd.
No, I mean that LeBron left.
No, I know, but it's just hilarious.
There's a hole in the Cleveland sports scene, and Myles Garrett,
and it's going to be filled by the Indians.
It's not. Okay, let me ask you a question. I don't know the answer to this.
Yeah.
What could the Indians possibly do if the
the
Indians win the World Series?
Yeah.
And the Browns win the AFC North? What is Cleveland happier about?
Winning the World Series.
Okay. I just don't know Cleveland enough.
But I will say, to piggyback on your point, even if the Browns went 10-6 and won the AFC North, Cleveland would be as excited as they were for LeBron when he came back.
Right. Yeah,
it would be
exactly.
one of those.
Exactly.
I think they just want the Browns to be decent. Like Derek
They just want
Anderson,
something.
Derek Anderson made the playoffs for them and is remembered now really fondly. And he's Derek Anderson.
Butch Davis was the coach of that team.
Yeah. They've had a really bad run. It's really funny to me that in football, a league with parity that's specifically designed so this can't happen, you have teams like the Browns and Bills who just can't succeed.
I mean,
all the rules are in their favor, like all of them. It's not like in basketball where you could tank for 4 years, but you still need to get lucky with the Embiid draft and shit like that. Like your favorite team, the Orlando Magic.
Yeah.
They've sucked for 6 straight years and somehow don't have a guaranteed all-star in their roster. But in football, it should work in your favor between the cap and now the rookie scale and all this stuff. Like it's impossible to be bad for 2 decades in a row.
Well, I mean, I just think there's a couple of things. Number one, I think ownership has a lot to do with it in the NFL. Is that sticking to a plan is the most important thing. I really do think that John Dorsey will get 4 years and
solid Hard Knocks for him. I'd give him like a B or a B minus.
I gotta tell you,
seems authoritative.
They're not giving him enough runway because John Dorsey is like a top 5 NFL personality.
I liked how they dealt with Antonio Callaway. I feel like I would have dealt the same way with nephew Kyle. Had a similar incident happened, and he didn't tell us for a couple of days. Would have sat him down, be like, "Look, man, you get one chance with me." Actually, nephew Kyle probably
That's
gets
why I
a
don't
lot
have
of
a car,
chances.
though. You see, I
No,
just
we're
cut it
related.
right out.
Yeah,
you have a car?
I
nephew
don't.
Kyle, listen to me. I was like, "Don't get a car. You're in LA. Use Uber.
Okay.
No insurance. Don't have to worry about parking it.
Okay.
Yeah,
Or crashing it.
yeah,
Or crashing it. Or crashing it.
Kevin Clark both has a car and likes to get hit by other cars.
It's a hobby of mine.
Yeah, you lead the rigor in pedestrian accidents.
It's two to nothing, I think, across the board.
No, Allison Herman, I thought got sideswiped.
Oh, she was on
by
a
one.
bike.
Yeah, it still counts. I'm still counting
Half.
it. Kyle's probably been hit by a car. Just
I've been hit
hasn't
by a
told
school
us.
bus.
By a school bus. All right, there we go. Yeah, this will all be the Ringer oral history. More training camp highlights.
Jeez.
What was the most depressing training camp you went to? You can
the
tell us.
most depressing?
The one where it's like, wow.
So there's a couple of training camps where you can just feel that the vibe is just like nothing,
not right.
Nothing going on here. Nothing going on here. I would say that I think the all-time example last year was the Baltimore Ravens, where you knew they had to draft a Lamar Jackson because it was just like, at one point Terrell Suggs was making fun of Ryan Mallett for being bad just openly on the field.
Oh,
it was
Jesus.
It was the weirdest training camp thing maybe I've ever seen.
That's not good.
I think there's some definite weirdness in Buffalo right now because I think that competition, I think Josh Allen makes better throws than McCarron and Nathan Peterman, and they all make the same mistakes.
Yeah.
And so you're kind of just watching and you're just like, oh, what the hell is going on here?
Yeah.
I'd say I don't really know what's going on in Detroit right now. I watched that practice and just... I'm only there for one day in these places, but I wasn't ready to run through a brick wall at Lions practice. I gotta tell you, Matt Patricia has like
Tough
video
start for Matt.
on the screen, and he corrects guys on the field like in real time. That's the only interesting thing about Lions practice. But I just think you can pencil them in for just the Lions season, 9 to 10 wins being the ceiling.
Has any Belichick assistant ever gone on to be a good head coach? I'm trying to think.
Well, there was the brief fleeting Eric Mangini year.
Yeah, it certainly was fleeting.
Yep. There was the 9 games of Josh McDaniels in Denver.
God.
I don't understand why they only have it's not like they're complete disasters. They have just a little hint of success, and then they just completely tank.
The Patricia thing was hilarious to me because we lost the Super Bowl because we couldn't get one stop against the Eagles for 4 straight quarters.
Yep.
We never stopped them ever. They did whatever they wanted. Nick Foles ended up getting a book out of the Super Bowl, and the Lions were like, "That's our guy, Matt Patricia. Come on in. Here's a contract."
Also, the Belichick, the book on Belichick is that he doesn't really reveal the entire master plan to his assistants.
Why would he?
Only getting a very
That's what I'm like at the Ringer.
You're only getting
Think Fennessey and Mallory know what I'm really thinking? I don't tell them.
You're only getting a very narrow view of the Belichick experience, and that was the whole theory behind why McDaniel stayed. Is that Belichick, his little carrot was, hey, I'll tell you everything, which I wouldn't even believe at this point.
It's probably not even a lot to tell. I think Belichick's really simple. I think he's just do your job, and he's cutthroat. And he studies tape, and he's really freaking smart. And I think he remembers everything.
Why are there personnel guys who come from his tree who have been better? Like, why is Thomas Dimitroff?
I think that's if I was another team, I would try to hire the personnel people in his tree.
Right.
I wouldn't care about the coaches.
I think there's a thoroughness there.
I think there's things he looks for that other teams haven't figured out. There's some sort of even this 5th rounder, Bentley.
Yeah.
Who is going to start and call plays on defense. He was like a 3-year captain at Purdue. He was downgraded because of some speed stuff and stuff like that, but just seems like a leader and a good guy. He looks over and over again for these leader tough guys.
And I think the big thing, and one of his former lieutenants once told me this, and I think about it all the time. The one thing Belichick likes to do is he likes to scout based on what guys can do versus what they can't do. And that's the whole do your job mentality, right? And I think so many GMs sit there and say, that guy's not fast, that guy can't cover, that guy can't do X, Y, and Z. And Belichick flips it around and says, wait, if we got this guy in the 5th round, what is the one thing he could do? And is he worth 53-man spot? And I think that is the question that defines the personnel situation. I think it's pretty useful.
Do you know what Belichick's single biggest hole has been during his 2 decades as Pats coach when he became the greatest football coach of all time?
Defensive backs?
Drafting a specific type of receiver that he's missed on 7 straight times.
Yeah.
Actually, so here are all the receivers in the history of the Patriots franchise from the 2nd through 4th round. Okay. Hench and I were texting about this yesterday. I won't do the whole thing. I'll just go since 98 because I want to include my man Tony Simmons because I still have his jersey. So 2nd rounders, 94 Kevin Lee, 06 Chad Jackson, 03 Bethel Johnson, 98 Tony Simmons, 2013 Aaron Dobson. That's every 2nd rounder the Pats have spent on a receiver in the past 20 years. All 5 of those guys failed. All of them.
I don't even remember Chad Jackson or Aaron Dobson and anything other than bad training camp
fast
reports.
Guys will teach them.
Remember, with Dobson, it was just he's not getting wrong with McDaniels, and then a minute later he was gone. Yeah. I do remember Bethel Johnson actually on a football field, but with Jackson and Dobson, I just don't remember anything other than these guys are really struggling.
Right.
These guys are running with the force.
And then Deion Branch at the tail end in 02 was the one success. But then 3rd round, Brandon Tate, 2009.
Oh, my God.
Taylor Price, 2010. 4th round, Josh Boyce, 2013.
Josh Boyce, yeah.
Malcolm Mitchell, 2016. The Pats have gone 1 for 8 in the 2nd through 4th rounds.
And Malcolm Mitchell's already gone.
He's gone. I actually liked him. I think he just had knee issues.
Yeah, he couldn't get healthy.
Yeah, he couldn't stay in the field. But the Steelers have drafted how many guys from 2nd through 4th round just in the last 6 years?
And this James Washington guy is going to be really good.
Over and over again, they've nailed these guys, and it seems like these are the easiest picks to make, and it's the Belichick is one tiny blind spot.
The theory, I remember hearing something a couple of years ago from a scout, someone in the NFL. It was just you know what Bill Belichick should do is just hire someone else, just a VP of wide receivers.
Of wide receiver consultants.
You know what? Ted Thompson's not doing anything. Ted Thompson ate on everybody. Jordy Nelson, Devontae Adams, just call Ted Thompson and say, your job is to look at receivers. Here's $200,000 a year.
There is some magic secret sauce with receivers. The one thing I would never do is just draft the Cordero Patterson type fast guy. We'll teach him how to read offenses, but he's got so much overwhelming natural. Those guys never seem to make it.
Did you see the Cordero Patterson?
Adam Thielen.
Yeah, no, incredible. Cordero Patterson is now flashing hype with his 3rd team. That's very exciting for you.
I'm not banking on Cordero Patterson.
No, you shouldn't. He also made up an anecdote about Belichick. Did you see that?
Yeah.
That was strange. Just for the listeners. So he said, Belichick said, you're going to be the player you were meant to be or something like that. And then he got to training camp and they asked him about it and he was like, oh, Belichick never said that. My advice for working for Belichick, don't make up anecdotes.
Yeah, don't make Belichick anecdotes. What did you see out of all the training camps you went to? Did you see any team that you thought to yourself, oh, a little sleepery?
Ooh. I mean, this is not a sleeper. I think after seeing them in training camp, my Super Bowl NFC team is the Minnesota Vikings. That's not, I just love their vibe. I loved everything about them. And
you did a big piece for us about how they're using
and I got
the football version of advanced metrics.
And I have a Cousins piece coming next week as well. I sat down with him for a long time. And so
I'm shorting all the Cousin stock that's out there.
Can you just wait until my piece runs?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Are we sleeping on the Falcons a little bit? They've got an athletic defense. I tell you who we're not sleeping on, the Indianapolis Colts.
Did they change their OC?
They did not. But
We're not sleeping on them.
they Indianapolis Colts.
No, the Falcons. Did they change?
Oh, no, they did not.
Yeah.
No,
okay.
it's still Sark.
Great.
It's still Sark.
I'm out.
But the Indianapolis Colts did not impress me, even though Andrew Luck. The Andrew Luck story can't be told until like October, until he gets hit in a regular season game. And outside of that, they didn't hit on Quincy Wilson, their pick last year.
They've missed. Going back to what's his face, the awful GM they had for years,
Grigson.
Yeah, Grigson. The highlight of his career was framing the Patriots.
Wait, was the second highlight of his career not agreeing to interview with me because I work for you?
No, the second highlight of his career was trading a first-round pick for Trent Richardson, who was should have been a left guard.
And stonewalling me is third.
You is third. Yeah, they missed on too many picks. You can't bounce back from that if you're just blowing entire drafts for years and years. I will say, though, I was excited to read the Luck stuff. It seems like he's actually going to be back in our lives.
He feels good. He feels good. I mean, but again, so first of all, Jacoby Brissett did you see that, like, Jim Irsay says Jacoby Brissett is like a top 20 quarterback?
I mean,
I know what you're going to say. I'm a reporter. I have to deal with these people. You can comment on Jim Irsay.
Well, it's like at Thanksgiving. If your uncle has 4 glasses of wine and says something crazy,
he said he wouldn't
trade remember it a week later.
He wouldn't trade it for anything. Basically, the 2 untouchable backup quarterbacks in the NFL right now, according to their teams, are Nick Foles, who won a Super Bowl, and then Jacoby Brissett, who led the NFL in catchable dropped passes last year.
We got our revenge on Nick Foles a couple days ago. Little strip sack hurt his shoulder. Have some of that, Nick Foles. How's that? How's your shoulder?
How was that revenge game for you last night?
No, it's not. It's not at all. No. I'll never get over the Super Bowl. Really? I just want to give me an answer on Malcolm Butler. I went from being not bothered it to like, I'm really going to spend the rest of my life not knowing what happened to Malcolm Butler.
I was in Tennessee. Did you know that the Titans just never asked Malcolm Butler?
About what?
About why he didn't play in that game?
The guy they put in for him, first of all, I don't think is even in training camp. But it was also one of those like, wow, that guy's on the field. This is the Super Bowl. It was one of those moments. Everybody's looking at each other like, why is this guy covering receivers?
Here's the thing. It's a very gossipy industry. Yeah. Very gossipy.
Nothing's gotten out.
And the fact that there's not a strong rumor that when you have 2 beers with someone on the road, they tell you, indicates to me that I think it just might be a performance thing. I mean, he may have just looked like shit in practice. Do you think he slept with
Delonte West? I finally Kevin Clark's speechless.
I just don't. I'm just
By the way,
ready.
Andrew Luck,
I'm
my
just
favorite.
Ready for you to come up with something else here.
My favorite fantasy football moment was them both saying Andrew Luck was being drafted too low in the leagues. Like he's right now is QB 19 and blah, blah, whatever they're saying. And then they're like, the only thing about him is can he stay healthy now? I'm like, yeah, that's exactly the reason he's being drafted too low. I love that podcast. I was like getting mad at him. I'm power walking and yelling at both of them.
The only question is whether the guy who last played a snap the same day Colin Kaepernick played a snap can stay healthy.
And has had his shoulder operated on twice. And in a position where you land on your shoulder and it gets hurt again.
Andrew Luck has been on 3 Ringer NFL shows with me since the last time he played football.
I will tell you this. He won't be on my fantasy team. I don't mess around. If I'm drafting a quarterback, I want to make sure the guy's on the field. If he's on the field, great. And he's probably going to swing leagues if he plays 16 games. But so you have no sleepers?
Fantasy sleepers?
No, for
oh, geez.
The Vikings aren't a sleeper. That was like
sorry.
a cop-out pick.
I just wanted to just point out that they're going to be good.
No shitty team that you were like, oh,
not on the tour. I mean, everybody's
That's too bad.
Yeah, everybody seems fairly stable.
I'm crossing off Tampa.
Oh, I am too.
I think the Jameis thing is unrecoverable, and the karma gods are going to just annihilate them this year.
Wait, I have a new thought on this. Why aren't the Bucks just trading for Teddy Bridgewater?
I think that's a popular Twitter
and
opinion
then
right
I
now.
didn't see it, but then
just in general,
and
makes
so
sense.
then just say this is our guy going forward and let Jameis go to.
They should waive Jameis. I would just cut the cord,
or just keep him around and let him play like week whatever. Just let him play, but and then next year he can go sign and
let's move on.
He can go sign in Arizona to back up Josh Rosen or whatever. I mean, I don't know.
How do we feel about the chosen Rosen? Is he getting good buzz?
Yeah, he's been getting good. It's like what we said. I mean, it's Matthew Berry was on this podcast last week, and he said there are 22 good quarterbacks in the NFL. That's not because there are 22 talented quarterbacks. It's because, again, it's easy to play quarterback. So I think Josh Rosen will be, if he has to play this year once. I can't believe, literally, like we talk about the vice president is a heartbeat away from being president. Josh Rosen is a Sam Bradford injury away from starting, and that's pretty likely.
So he's starting.
He's starting week 1. He's starting week 1.
See, I feel like the Rams have replaced the Pats as the biggest all-time lock to win their division.
Oh,
just throw them in every parlay.
I want to actually say a sleeper team that I'm ruling out.
Okay.
The Chicago Bears.
Yeah, that's just Mace propaganda.
No, but it's kind of common actually. I just think they skip steps in the same sort of. They tried to take the same route as a lot of other teams with the offensive coach, young quarterback, all that stuff. I think they skipped too many steps to be good in 2018.
Explain this to me: Rams minus 150, Niners plus 260, Seattle plus 425. Who the f thinks Seattle's winning the NFC West and Arizona's 18-1?
Wait, Seattle is
plus 450.
That's
like
ridiculous.
Ridiculous.
That's ridiculous.
They don't even care about this season. This is like a total rebuilding season for them. And they whiffed on their first round pick.
They don't.
I would make fun of them if the Pats were getting anything out of their top 2 picks.
They should shut down Russell Wilson for the season so he doesn't die.
The Rams are minus 150. I don't get why wouldn't they be like minus 400? The only thing I can think of is the schedule.
I don't know. Also, I mean, it is a lot of new faces.
Our hero, Sean McVay?
It's kind of combustible there.
The Rams?
Yeah.
Because of the chemistry?
Yeah.
So Sue is basically like the DeMarcus Cousins.
No. I mean, it's just a lot of different guys. It's different. I like all these guys personally. Marcus Peters, Aqib Talib, and Ndamukong Suh. But you are just sort of building a defense on the fly. We're not used to that sort of super team. The rising salary cap, which has risen $10 million every year for 6 years, has led us to the place where you can get 3 quality veterans like that at one time and mold them all together. It's unprecedented. Wade Phillips has a lot of pressure on him.
No, he's fine. Wade Phillips doesn't know where he is.
I think the Panthers might be good. Carolina Panthers.
Coming up, Sean Fennessey is going to hop on and talk about Jets QBs and his large adult son.
Can
Sam
I ask
Darnold.
you one more question? Have you seen the new Liam Neeson movie coming out?
The Snowplow movie. I think it's going to be one of the best 10 action Snowplow movies. I haven't finished my top 10, but it's up there. Do you want to stay on for Fennessey?
Sure.
All right. There are a lot of fantasy apps. FanDuel is an easier-to-use choice with more features for everyday players and more ways to win than ever before, like FanDuel's new tool, Guru, which helps you make smarter picks so you can feel more confident going into game day. Just start by picking any player. If you pick a QB, Guru will use tested DFS strategies to recommend the best wide receivers and tight ends to pair with him. Not to mention, these guys tell me that live betting is coming sooner than you think. And this season, FanDuel even has a free weekly pick'em contest, as well as the biggest free NFL Survivor League ever, up to $250 up for grabs. New players, try FanDuel today. Get a $20 bonus when you make your first deposit. Just sign up and use promo code BS. All right, Sean Fennessey is here. He has Sam Darnold fever. He decided it would be a good idea to have Sam Darnold Day. It's like you're trying to jinx your own savior.
I promise it was not my idea.
Savior Sam.
It wasn't.
Is that his nickname? Savior Sam?
Just Sam. He's just Sam to me.
The Jets QBs, it's a staggering list that dates back to before I was born. Joe Namath's still the greatest Jets QB of all time.
Correct.
Finished with 170 TDs and 215 interceptions, and the last 6 years of his career were really abysmal.
Yes, that's a fact.
And he's the best Jets QB of all time. Just going by total yardage. Actually, let's go by QB record. So Namath is the Jets wins leader at 60 and 61. Ken O'Brien following him up at 50 and 55.
I think Ken O'Brien has the best winning percentage.
I will say, as somebody who's rooted against the Jets my whole life, which I start my first football season, I can remember anything as like 74. Ken O'Brien was probably the most competent quarterback you had. Like, I actually felt like he knew what he was doing, and I was semi-afraid of him.
I was raised on watching my dad get his hopes up through 3/4 of Ken O'Brien games and then get destroyed in the 80s in the fourth quarter.
Yeah. But
so
that's still
he
better
was
than
like
anything you've had.
early version of Phillip Rivers.
Yeah, very similar. Very similar. Very talented, big arm, threw a lot of touchdowns,
And then
couldn't get it
the
done.
fourth quarter, just a massive disaster.
Yes.
Richard Todd, who took you to the 80 championship game and threw some picks.
Before my time, but yeah.
42 and 51 lifetime, 110 TDs, 138 interceptions. Arguably the third best Jets quarterback ever.
138 interceptions in 102 games.
Yeah.
That's not
Different
good.
era.
That's not good.
So Vinny Testaverde, you laugh, 35 and 26, 77 TDs, 58 interceptions. Made the AFC title game, a game that if you've ever watched on YouTube, which I may or may not have done in the last 5 years, was way closer than people remember. And I remember this just because I think I bet the Jets.
We're in such a messed up state as Jets fans that we now have to acknowledge that Vinny is deeply underrated and that he was like kind of a good quarterback for the Jets. Now, it's a little bit skewed by the fact that Bill Parcells was his head coach, and Bill Parcells is one of the 3 best coaches in the history of sports. So it's a little complicated, but Vinny, you know, also pride of Long Island, grew up around the corner from my father. We were really emotionally attached to Vinny, but
good comeback story. Bill Parcells.
Yeah. But
Parcells can save him.
He still wasn't good, though.
I kind of feel like there's a Spanish soccer team that only uses local players, and they play in the top division, and they play Barcelona and all that stuff. I kind of feel like the Jets should have pivoted and just had Long Island guys.
They would have been ornery, I think.
You would have still had DeBrickashaw Ferguson and Vinny Testaverde and Wayne Corbett and those guys.
I don't think those guys would have had any problem with the anthem either.
Well, Vinny somehow had 2 playoff wins. So Mark Sanchez, who his highlight was he not only beat the Pats in Foxborough, but threw 3 TDs and no picks, if I remember correctly.
That's a fact.
It was kind of lights out, and that game was also the Pats came back. It looked like it was like 21-18, something like that. And then Sanchez that was it.
They should have beaten
away.
the Steelers that year.
I agree.
They just got off to a tough start.
I mean, both Pennington and Sanchez probably should have overcome the Steelers in AFC championship games and didn't. That's painful.
Pennington, 32 and 29, 82 TDs, 55 picks. You can make a case for him as the best Jets QB.
2-time comeback player of the year.
After that, we go off a cliff. Boomer Esiason, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Geno Smith, Brett Favre for a year. Neil O'Donnell's brought here to win games. One of my favorite moments ever. I'm a winner. We can win here. One of the great press conferences that's ever
Long
happened.
Islander, even
He
though he
sounded
wasn't
just like
from
Mike
Long Island.
I was gonna
Francesa.
say you're just doing Mike's voice.
No, but that's what it was. I was living with my best friend Jeff Gallo, and we saw that press conference. And for the next 2 years, we were like, I was brought here to win games. I'm a winner. It was like you went to one Super Bowl and threw you made somebody else, the other team, the MVP.
He was out of the league in 24 months.
So anyway, Darnold, I would say just I don't even think this can be argued is the most talented Jets QB of all time.
I think that's right.
He's the most pedigree to be good that you've ever had since Joe Namath.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I wrote about Darnold today a little bit and wrote about Namath a little bit, and I was having some fun at his expense because his career numbers in the light of Aaron Rodgers' NFL are terrible.
Yeah.
But you know, Namath won them a Super Bowl. He's an iconic figure.
Well, his knees were shot by
and he had a horrible
1970.
final 5 or 6 years of his career that kind of skewed everything too. But Sam's probably the most talented Jet ever, which is like barring Darrelle Revis and Curtis Martin. It doesn't mean he's going to be good, but the Jets have had very few top 5 picks in their entire history. Among them, like Keyshawn Johnson, Mark Sanchez, and Sam is right up there with those guys.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, it's just they just don't do the typical sort of Buffalo Bills thing where they draft a first-round quarterback every couple of years. They just haven't done that. So the toolsy guys have not really existed. I think there have been some really freaking talented players on the Jets. I think Chris Jenkins is a good example of someone who, like, no one talks about him anymore, but he was one of the most athletic guys in football at a huge size 8 years ago.
Totally, but like, I guess there's a difference here, and the people that I focused on when I was writing about it were just QBs drafted by the Jets.
Yeah,
Jenkins
of course.
obviously came from the Panthers, had a great career, and then came into a dominant team and made them that much better. They've had a lot of great players over the years. I guess I'm just thinking about players that they groomed and put forward. And it's a pretty limited list.
They just have so many stops and starts, and they've never really committed to a plan like this. And that's why I think just drafting a guy high I guess Sanchez, but that was the overarching Rex Ryan plan, which just petered out really quickly in the grand scheme of things. I think in order to save the McCagnon Bulls era, they had to do something like this, go all in and just pray for the next 36 months.
My favorite part of this whole podcast was Fennessey's revisionist history that the Jets never really have a top 5 pick.
Well, it's not that they didn't have a top 5 pick. It's just
by my count, you've had 25 top 6 picks since the 60s, including the problem is you've just picked the wrong guys. Vernon Gholston.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Leonard Williams and Jamal Adams weren't bad picks, but Mark Sanchez, DeBrickashaw Ferguson, Dwayne Robinson, Sam Darnold this year. You also had years where, like, I remember these years because I'm old, but Johnny Lamb Jones was the second pick in 1984. I was like 14, and that seems stupid to a 14-year-old. Like, that's weird. Aren't there better guys?
Vernon Gholston has a argument to be one of the worst draft picks in history.
They've just been bad at drafting.
Never recorded a sack.
The point I was trying to make is not that they haven't had top 5 picks, it's that they haven't drafted very many talented players. I mean, they took Dwayne Robinson. They traded up to get Dwayne Robinson, I think from Kentucky at the number 5 pick.
Yeah.
They've made a lot of huge mistakes. You know, famously, I think they're probably their worst draft pick all time is Ken O'Brien because he was selected 3 picks ahead of Dan Marino, which is brutal.
There was bad Marino stuff going around, though.
Sure.
That was an all-time.
That was an all-time
cocaine
rumor draft.
Just spread
it
the
was. We did it
cocaine
30 for
rumor.
30. We talked about it.
I would have taken it into my home immediately.
So, just Johnny Lamb Jones. Billy Sims was the first pick. Johnny Lamb was the second pick. The next 2 picks were Anthony Munoz and Bruce Clark.
You're going to want Anthony Munoz in there.
But it was...
Pencil him in for 20 years of high production.
It's a tough draft.
But they did this over and over again. I remember, what was the Blair Thomas year? So that was 1995.
Heaven.
Let's see who else they could have had that year. That was Jeff George and Blair Thomas were our first 2 picks.
Iconic.
Cortez Kennedy 3, Keith McCants 4, Junior Seau 5.
It'd be nice to have Junior Seau.
Yeah.
I feel fortunate to have not had Jeff George, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
They also, by the way,
he was
traded-
magnificent though. Pre-internet, but Jeff George was really something to behold.
He would have been something in New York.
In 98, they traded out of the 18th pick, and they passed on Randy Moss, who went 3 picks later.
Yeah, there's a lot of those. The Jets have had a lot of those over the years. But Darnold actually feels like it was the right pick. And I think there's 2 things going on. One is that they might have a franchise QB. And then 2 is they actually made the right pick for once with the top 5 pick.
Yeah.
Although the scuttlebutt ahead of the draft, right before the Baker Mayfield moment happened, I would say, I don't know what, Kevin, 36 hours before the draft actually happened. I think that many people assumed they were getting Baker and that either Darnold or Allen were going 1. And I was kind of prepping myself for that and getting excited. And all my kind of research and excitement was oriented around a Baker Mayfield New York Jets thing. And then, I don't know, it's just somewhere along the way, Darnold slipped in the mind of Dorsey, or he was never really in play there in Cleveland. I don't know what happened.
There was so much disinformation. This was when you have 5 first-round quarterbacks and maybe 6 if you count Rudolph, as far as grades go. There were Peter King reported like 3 months before the draft that the Browns were absolutely going to take Josh Allen, and it was over.
Yeah.
And then by draft night, it was, they're going to take, or the day before it was, they're going to take Darnold. And so I just think it's one of the rare events where you just cannot trust anybody leading up to it. No one is telling the truth.
And this is going to be a big moment because I rarely apologize and admit I was wrong. It's one of my things.
Whoa, what's about to happen here?
I think I was wrong about Baker Mayfield. I'm just getting out now. Sometimes I'm wrong.
Were you out? You were down on him?
I thought he had a lot of bust potential, and I wouldn't have taken him first. And I think I was wrong. I think it actually seems like if you're the Browns and you bring this super confident guy in who's won in college, who kind of plays the way quarterbacks should play now, I think I was just wrong. I think I missed it.
There's something interesting with him and Darnold too, where it feels like both of these guys should just be playing now, but one of them is probably going to play and one of them is probably not. And I'm interested to see which is which.
Baker's not going to play.
Right. Big, like Tyrod, it seems like is going to play. Darnold, oddly, the conversation is really moving towards he needs to start. Louis Riddick on TV on SportsCenter last night was just like, it's ridiculous if Darnold doesn't start for the Jets, which is pretty aggressive. I mean, Sam Darnold's one of the youngest players in the league.
We always do this. We literally did this with Blake Bortles one year.
That's true.
Where he has literally the second preseason game, and he looks good, and he hits open guys, and he's looking great against the 2s and 3s, and we say, it is an abomination if he doesn't start week 1, and then we rush him along. There is a value in, I guess, not redshirting a rookie quarterback, but at least giving him 5-6 games to sit. The most talented quarterback under the age of 35 right now is Aaron Rodgers, and he sat for multiple seasons.
true.
There's something to that. He would not have been the same. I think there's just
TB.
Tom Brady sat for multiple seasons.
TB sat for 1 year. And
the
four
most
Darnold
talented
will not
quarterback under age 42 sat for multiple years. So
I don't see Darnold sitting multiple years.
no, but I think they
maybe
should
one
hit.
season.
You're not going to make the playoffs this year. Sit for 6-7 weeks. Learn to be professional. There are not enough practices to get good at being an NFL quarterback. It doesn't happen. Training camp is so watered down now.
I love that Clark went NFL Live on us. His
did,
hands
yeah.
are going. He's
Learn
like,
how to be a
Teddy
professional.
Bruschi, you have to learn to sit on the bench.
And so I haven't seen you this animated since you got the 90210 poster 30 minutes ago.
Oh my God.
It was the most excited I've ever seen you.
Thank you.
Wow,
Okay.
that's nice.
Well, I've won so many titles in all my sports. All I have
Okay.
left are now.
Good transition.
Yeah, no, but I just, there are no more two-a-days. There's just not enough, literally not enough hours in the day to learn how to play quarterback at the NFL level.
Can I
that
make a
quickly.
counter?
Yes.
First 4 games of the Jets schedule. Detroit, at Detroit, Monday night, 7:10 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
Home for the Dolphins, at Cleveland. Those are first 3. And then you got Jacksonville week 4, at Jacksonville.
Oh, you
So-
want to go against the best defensive line in
No,
football?
I don't. But I like those first 3. Like if you were going to start him, those first 3 are like kind of a nice way to
Who's
sneak
fi-
them
who's
in.
the
This is a
fifth
good
game?
strategy, actually, to let him play against bad teams and throw him a count to the Wolves.
It's
Whenever
just
it's
throw-
Jags
so
time,
throw
just
Teddy
putting
Bridgewater
counters.
when
to
I
the
was
Wolves?
when I was in college, I covered the 2007 Dolphins, and their whole thing was, when was John Beck going to play? And they were
remember that.
waiting. They threw Cleo. They had Trent Green, and Trent Green got concussed almost immediately. Ended his career. Then they threw out Cleo Lemon, and the whole thing was, what defense are we going to start John Beck at? Turns out it didn't matter. Turns out John Beck sucked.
Wasn't John Beck like a second-round pick?
He was. Guess who I saw yesterday at Cowboys camp? John Beck.
Oh, man.
He's a private quarterback coach now. You're
Which-
going to want to learn from John Beck.
Aren't we all? Yeah.
Fantasy, which one of those teams scares you? At Detroit, home for Miami, at Cleveland.
I think Detroit's a little bit better than people think they are, so I'm not
Not
sure.
according to KC, who's just at the Detroit training
I think
camp.
they always have talent. I think Matthew Stafford will one day inherit the earth from sort of the upper generation of quarterbacks.
I agree with that.
I just don't think it's going to happen in 2018.
By the way, guys, it officially happened. I'm excited for football. I started thinking about the
Is it
Monday
when I
night
went
Jet-
full NFL Live?
No, well, when you went NFL Live, that started it. But I started thinking about the Monday night Jets at Detroit game
Yeah.
at 4:00 West Coast time. I'm in.
I mean, I'm all in, obviously.
Sign me up.
The minute I saw Darnold throw one preseason touchdown, I was like, best sport around. Can't believe it's back.
It's
Yeah, I called Sean yesterday because I had to talk to him about a fairly urgent work thing, and he's like, "Can I call you back in an hour? I'm watching the Jets." I was like, "Okay, I get it. You've never had a QB."
That's true. I was getting emotionally connected to my guy. Bill,
It's amazing.
does Sam scare you at all? Now
Yeah.
that your dynasty is winding down, we're soon to be removed from the Tom Brady, Bill Belichick era, hopefully within the next 10 years.
Yes.
Are you afraid of Sam?
Yeah. We were just talking about it. One of these years, the Pats are going to go 6-10, and somebody else is going to take the division. The biggest reason nobody's taking the division, well, 2 reasons. 3 reasons. Quarterbacks, Jets, Dolphins, Bills.
Yep.
Speaks for itself. Coaches. Nick Saban's really the only really good coach that's been in there other than like Rex for that 1 year.
Yep.
Parcells going way back before Belichick. And then bad owners. You have owners like Stephen Ross. I really, truly believe he wanted Jim Harbaugh to go to Michigan over hiring him as a Dolphins coach. I really believe that. I don't think he cares that much about the Dolphins. We know the Jets are a disaster.
Can I posit a Jets theory?
Yeah.
One of the best things that ever happened just to the
Yes,
Jets
yes,
was
yes.
Donald Trump getting elected president. Here's why. Woody Johnson is now the ambassador to England, which means he is no longer participating in the day-to-day activities of the New York Jets. Woody Johnson, as far as I can tell, is an incompetent owner. His brother, whose name I believe is Chris, right, Kevin?
Johnson.
Has been taking over day-to-day duties. And I'm frankly impressed by Chris Johnson. And every time he speaks, I'm like, this guy seems to know what he's talking about.
Wow.
Bill, we're going to be at war with England somehow. And
Yeah.
Fantasy's like, well, I know we're at war with England and the casualties are unbelievable, but I got to tell you, we got Darnold.
I mean, you know, we make sacrifices in this country.
I'll say another thing about the Pats. No, to help your Jets cause.
Yeah, okay.
Week 1 home for Houston. We have no receivers. It's basically like double team Chris Hogan. chip Gronk on the line and just let everyone else beat you, and we might actually score 13 points.
Is Chris Hogan still 7-11? Is that a thing that they still call him that?
Not really. Not New England.
Okay.
Chris Hogan's going to have like 13 catches in week 1. At Jacksonville week 2, that frightens the living F out of me.
Yep, that's the end of Tom Brady's career that day. Can't wait for that day.
There's slate. I'm going to ignore
Kyle.
that. There's slate 0-2 potential.
Mm-hmm.
Just slate, tiny, infant. And then you go at Detroit, Sunday night NBC, week 3.
So picture this.
With the 0-2 Pats going in there. I've played this out in my head repeatedly, especially after the offensive lineman we just drafted blew out his Achilles.
Mm-hmm.
And you start going, wow, there's just some bad juju about this season. You go into that game 0-2, and Al Michaels and Chris Collins were like, I mean, Al, I know it's the Patriots. I know. But, 0-2, it gets scary. It just does, Al.
If you're going to be 0-2 with any quarterback, they got the guy.
Yeah, and Brady's like nursing a sore shoulder. Like, there is a roadmap for this Pat season to go to hell.
You said it, not me.
I don't know. I don't know about that. I just think if there was a roadmap for all the last 15 seasons to go to hell. The year they lost Tom Brady, they won 11 games.
I know.
Matt Castle told me they had a play called
let me do
Randy,
this. This
where
is
they just threw the ball
This is
to
part
Randy
of my
Moss.
process.
I was talking to Castle, like, what was that play called? It was called Randy. So is that where you just give the ball to Randy? Yeah.
Good play.
Yeah,
It was effective.
great play.
Worked against the Jets.
In the Pats' benefit is it's yet another easy schedule.
I mean,
There's just not a lot of blue chippers on the docket.
I'm not banking on a playoff season for the Jets. I'm not even banking on Sam Darnold being good for 2 or 3 years. I think I'm just excited about the fact that they've just never had a guy like this. We were talking last night while we were watching the game in the office about Sanchez and if I had a similar feeling to this as I did when Sanchez was drafted, because he was also a top 5 pick, touted recruit, et cetera, et cetera. And I wasn't, because Sanchez was, I think, a reach at 5, and most people said it at the time.
Pete Carroll ripped his leaving early.
That's what I was going to say.
When you're
next.
a college coach, publicly rips you. That's not a good sign.
It seemed like I remember not being that afraid of Mark Sanchez.
Yes. No.
Being like, that feels like a reach. They were already talking about him as a game manager, which Darnold, there's no game manager. They're like, this guy really has a chance to be
He
great.
also had Brian Schottenheimer, who was a bottom 10 offensive coordinator.
Who are your receivers?
It's not bad. It's Robbie Anderson, Jermaine Kearse.
The troubled Robbie Anderson.
Yeah, is Robbie Anderson in the clear?
I believe he's been cleared of charges.
All of them?
I believe so.
His 40-yard
There were some infractions. I'm not going to defend them.
his 40-yard dash was down this year because of the bracelet on his ankle, but he's fine. Who else?
Oh, boy. I had to make a
Terrell
noise.
Pryor,
Terrell Pryor? Wow, this is a hodgepodge.
who's on a 1-year deal.
Who seems very popular with ex-teammates, by the way.
I heard that. I heard you and somebody was talking about this.
No, it
Some
was
podcast I was
Yeah,
listening
He
to.
almost got
we were
fake
talking about
knocked
it.
out and almost fell to the ground.
DJ Swearinger was basically punking him the entire time during their joint practices. And then he basically said, Jay Gruden can't protect you now. We can go after you. So
that's exciting
popular
for Terrell
guy in the
Pryor.
locker room.
Terrell Pryor did not
is
play
good.
last night. Curse is a solid number
I gotta
2.
say, if Robbie Anderson could stay in the field,
He's talented.
he was a monster last year.
He has, I think, 2 900-yard receiving seasons. He's really fast. I don't know if he's an elite receiver, but he's a building block.
He was an elite daily fantasy guy last year. There was like a 6-week stretch where his salary was way off.
I'm pro Robbie Anderson on the field. Everything else is kind of up in the air with him. But I mean, he's a good player for Darnold too, because Darnold's going to need to just fling it sometimes, and he's the kind of guy who ends up bringing the ball down when you just fling it.
I think this is going to be a really fun football season in the sense that there's a lot of new blood, which Kevin and I discussed earlier.
Tons of new blood.
New York has 2 new guys that are just going to be really fun to add to the league. The Browns being kind of interesting, the potential fall of the Pats, the definite fall of the Seahawks.
Just to be clear, you're the only person in America talking about the potential downfall
Kev,
of the Pats.
This is part of my process. Just allow me to. This is what I do in mid-August. I feel like I try to think of all the ways it can go wrong, and then in like September 2nd, I bet on the Pats to win the AFC East.
And then they do.
That's part of my process.
Who do you guys think is the worst team in the NFL this season?
Okay, good question. I think it has the
It
definite.
potentially could be Seattle.
They here's the problem. They have a top 5 quarterback. They have a top 5 receiver in Doug Baldwin. They have Dwayne Brown, who's really good. Then everything else is the absolute worst roster in the NFL. And so where does that where does that fall? I guess when you factor in
They've lost
the
so
upper
many
echelon.
guys, and they blew their first round pick, seems like he's not even going to play. And like Doug Baldwin seems like one of those guys that if it's going wrong,
He's great. He's really good.
no, if it's going wrong, he'll be smart enough to be like, yeah, I'm gonna
And he's hurt already.
do
right
these
now,
curl
right?
routes to the sideline.
I think I can name like
I'm not going
4
over the middle
guys on the
today.
Seahawks right now. That's not a good sign.
Well,
It's
Earl
not good.
Thomas is just not. He's just going to write Players Tribune articles for this season, I guess.
They're gonna have a monster in their division in the Rams,
Yep.
and potentially 2 if the Niners come through this year. I think the Niners are your way.
I agree with that. I think the Niners have a chance. It's really all it takes now. Rookies have an outsized influence in the NFL now, and second-year guys have an outsized influence. It didn't used to be that way. And so if a couple of guys on that defense make the leap, it's a very different Niners team.
I actually think Dallas could be really bad.
Oh, I agree with that.
I think that's
wait,
another
last
one.
night.
I agree.
Yeah.
I was at Cowboys camp the last 2 days. I felt nothing.
Who's Dak throwing the ball to? Cole Beasley?
Dak is a classic. Are
Alan
we sure?
Hearns.
Alan Hearns. Okay, Alan Hearns is a credible NFL
Well,
player.
I mean, that wasn't. I was just factually naming that it's
Yeah.
Alan Hearns.
And
I wasn't
they-
endorsing Alan Hearns.
They took a chance on someone else too. Who is the other player that they signed? Now, obviously, Zeke's going to get the ball a lot.
right.
I'm going to give you the worst Super Bowl odds right now.
Okay.
The Buffalo Bills
Yeah.
are plus 140. I guess that's like
The receivers are.
you bet 100, you win.
Oh,
145.
Tavon Austin, obviously.
Tavon Austin. That's what
He's gonna be like a gadget type.
Right.
Yeah, I'm out on Tavon Austin. The Bills are the worst. It looks like 145 to 1. Jets are 125 to 1. That
Oh.
seems low. Tampa 100 to 1. I agree with that.
One
Tampa
thing-
has some bad juju this
The
year.
thing that we didn't talk about with regard to Darnold is the Jets have a top 5 worst offensive line in the NFL this year.
Yep.
And
I brought that up earlier.
I mean, it's David Carr's offensive line. Like he's in trouble, and
That's why they should sit him.
One of the cases for sitting him is that he might just get annihilated. I mean, he's been under pressure in preseason games against third string defenses immensely. So,
Counterpoint: Russell Wilson has been getting completely destroyed for 5 years, and he's still one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL.
Yeah, Seattle's 60 to 1, which seems low. The other ones that are in there, Miami's got terrible odds, Cincinnati, Arizona, Chicago.
It's interesting
the
to
Browns.
me. The Seattle thing is interesting to me because they were the first team to figure out the CBA after it was signed in 2011. And now that they're done, we get to see the first sort of life cycle of a team that figured out the CBA. And I think that's what's interesting to watch about that. It's almost like you used to talk about the guys who came in from high school in the NBA and whether or not they age differently. Like now we see like the life cycle of a really good team in the modern era. And it's 5.5 years.
it strikes
Their
me.
secondary fell apart too.
That's what
No,
I was
but
gonna
that's
say.
what I'm
Sherman got
saying.
hurt.
I'm just, but that's it. But also, you sign those guys to big contracts. Stuff starts log jamming, and then all of a sudden, after
You could tell
5.5
they
years,
knew
they're
this
done.
last year because they made a couple big short-term bets with their salary cap, knowing that they were going to be F for this year.
I just think they had a golden generation in the secondary of guys
Absolutely.
that were like 3 or 4 Hall of Famers there, and those guys aren't on the team anymore, or they're too injured
If you
to play.
hit on 3rd, 4th, and 5th round picks, and they become all pro guys, you're going to win the Super Bowl.
Well, the reality is you have a 4 to 5 year run now.
Yep.
The Pats have been able to have 4 to 5 year runs. But
Tell me about it.
Seattle stretched theirs out to maybe 5.
5 years. And I think that's
Last year,
the upper
throwaway.
limit unless you have a historically good coach and
was
quarterback
11
in the
of-
same place.
6 years, 11 to 16,
Yeah.
right? Or 12 to 16.
It was 11. They made some noise and made the playoffs.
Yeah, so it was a 6 year run, which is more than you can ask for. I thought
12
Wilson
to
was
16.
running
Sorry,
for
I was 1 year. It was 12 to 12 is the first year.
So 5-year run.
12 is the year they drafted Russell Wilson.
and they were useless last year. Wilson looked like he was running for his life last year.
It's a football malpractice.
Do you have Mahomes fever, by the way? A little bit? Touch of Mahomes?
I talked to the GM there. He said they're actually generally I'm waiting and seeing. He's throwing a lot of interceptions in practice, and people say Aaron Rodgers throws a lot of interceptions in practice, but that's different. Rodgers is testing his receivers a lot, and he'll throw just to see if the guy can come down with it. Mahomes, if he's doing that, shouldn't be doing that. He should be trying to complete passes in practice. I just think he's throwing interceptions. So I think that they're going to try to. I think the fact that he's a rookie quarterback and he's on the cheap deal and they can build a team around him is a big selling point for them. And I think that's going to be a net win because it's not like Alex Smith was so good that I think saving $14 million against the cap is really important at that position. I think Mahomes can be really good. I don't know if it's going to be this season. It might be the Chiefs might be a 2019 team.
Who has the best season? Kirk Cousins, Alex Smith, or Patrick Mahomes?
Kirk Cousins.
I say Alex Smith.
Alex Smith looked very competent last night.
I haven't done all my homework yet. The AFC West is that's one of the ones I can't figure
Khalil
out.
Mack's just not going to play.
And also, like, why do we think John Gruden's going to be a good coach? I think that could be a disaster.
I agree.
And then you look at Denver with Keenum, which is allegedly they're rebuilding a little bit. But I thought Keenum was good last year. I could see them being sneaky.
Well, John Elway is...
Chargers just every year 10 guys get hurt. Cross them off.
Yesterday they were relitigating why Colin Kaepernick isn't on the Denver Broncos.
And did you see that's going to screw with the NFL's collusion case?
Yes. He's talking all about his testimony or his deposition.
You can't... Elway just getting after it.
But it's funny. The Chiefs are plus 275. They were good last year.
Yeah.
Andy Reid every year is reliable in the regular season.
10-6.
Those odds seem
I think
most out of whack, right?
9-10 wins we're looking at. And then it just depends what else happens. Oakland, they gave John Gruden $100 million and they're just not going to give Khalil Mack any money.
The weird thing is, I don't know. There's so much legacy stuff. Like in the NFC East, the Eagles are minus 150. The Cowboys are plus 325. Giants are plus 450. Redskins are plus 900.
I think the Giants will be better than the Cowboys.
Well, that's why I don't understand. Who thinks the Cowboys are going to be good? I don't see that. I think Jason Garrett has a better chance to be first coach fired than they win the division. This is a weird one.
I feel like you could have said the exact same thing the last 3 seasons, though, with the Cowboys. Before we knew that Dak and Zeke were going to be good, every year it's sort of like, are they good? They always had a good offensive line, but aside from that, there's no telling. You never know. They're a national team too, so the odds are always a little bit skewed because of that, right?
You saying though? Oh, I get what you're saying. Yeah, more people bet on him.
Yeah.
So what's your Jets prediction?
I'd be thrilled with 6-10 if he plays 8 games and plays well. Sam,
you hear Sean and I fix the Oscars on Channel 33 last week.
I was traveling. I haven't caught up on it.
We fixed it.
Yeah, they sent us a check. They said, thanks so much,
congratulations.
Yeah.
The most popular category, which was the dumbest idea ever, and we actually made it work. Yeah. We made it so that you have to submit to one or the other. So if you were...
Yeah. I heard this today. It's great.
Yeah, if you're one of the comic book movies, you have a choice. Black Panther, you submitted for best movie or most popular. They'll submit to best movie. So cross them off. They're out of most popular.
I have a note to address about another podcast you did, which is that on Tuesday, Danny and I did a podcast. We mentioned William Hayes, the Dolphins defensive lineman, who believes many conspiracy theories, including that we didn't land on the moon. And then I started to make fun of this, and then I realized that we have someone here at TheRinger.com
this is now revisionist history.
Check out that episode of Black on the Air if you missed it. Bill,
I didn't say I didn't believe we're on the. No, I didn't say I didn't think we landed on the moon.
He said it was a 10% chance. He said it was 90-10.
I was like, I'm not 100% in on it. If I had to bet my life, I would bet we landed on the moon. I'm just not 100% on it. I'm 90%.
Okay, cool.
I think JFK was killed by multiple people. I do believe that. I'm 100% on that.
We're trying to do good journalism here at The Ringer, Bill.
We're going to wrap it up here. You want to plug anything?
No.
Who'd you interview this week? The Crazy Rich Asians director.
I did, John M. Chu, which is a great romantic comedy, and people should check that movie out. And John is a cool guy.
KC?
As far as we got Ringer NFL show with Danny Kelly and Rhino Hanlon. Got a couple pieces coming next week. Kirk Cousins, all that stuff.
Cousins fever from you.
I mean, that's what happens. That's what happens when you pick a team to make the Super Bowl. You got to go all in on your pieces.
That's going to come back to haunt you. Thanks to Kevin. Thanks to Sean. Thanks to ZipRecruiter. Don't forget to check them out, ZipRecruiter.com/BS. Thanks to Starbucks Double Shot. Starts with a bold Starbucks coffee blended with milk for a smooth, creamy, delicious flavor enhanced with ginseng, guarana, and B vitamins. Are you sharper when you have more energy, Kevin?
Absolutely.
Great. I know Fennessey is. Fennessey's drinking coffee constantly.
The answer is true.
Starbucks Double Shot. Energy to do the things you actually do. Find in your local convenience store. Thanks to FanDuel. This NFL season, FanDuel has more ways to win than ever before, like the free weekly Pick'em contest or FanDuel's free NFL Survivor League. Pick one team every week of the season for a chance at the $250,000 prize. FanDuel even has a new tool called Guru, which helps you pick your lineup so you feel more confident going into game day. Try FanDuel, new players. Please, today, Get a $20 bonus when you make your first deposit. Sign up. Use promo code BS. Don't forget about Dynasty Football and the Ringer NFL show, along with Kevin and Mays and GM Street and all the other stuff we have there. Fantasy football coming up. Very exciting. Enjoy the week. Talk to you next week.